I didn't know if there was just intro music. See, I forget if there's intro music, if there's an intro logo, or what was going on there. But welcome to the first episode of Unleash Your Unique Genius of the new year. Super excited to have Curt Kempton as my first guest kicking off the year. So welcome, Curt.
Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
And the show has been renamed once from Courage to Unique Genius, but I realized when you were on today, you are the first ever in all of our episodes. This is our third season, and you are the first ever 3-time guest.
Really?
Yes.
What? That's crazy.
Not even JC has been on the show 3 times, so congratulations.
I am so hoping this is true. Am I your first guest to be on with Angela Chanowski?
You are also my first guest to be on with Angela Chanowski.
That's amazing. I love it.
It is a good thing we led with that, because I said, welcome to an episode. And I usually say, this is your host. And I for sure would have said the wrong name. I sure would have said, this is your host. So this is your host, Angela Chanowski. Still not used to saying it. I am just coming off of, as you know, we talked about speaking at a conference last week. And as I went on stage each time and was about to go on the big main stage, I literally had to speak to myself. I was like,
Angela Chanowski. Well, your graphics are all updated. Like, you're on it.
Yeah, that's because we have a great team. So,
yeah,
great team of virtual assistants, which we're going to talk about today, of the powerhouse duo of using Unique Genius Virtual Assistant and ResponsiBid together, and how what a dynamic duo that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about that because it actually is a really special topic.
It is. So I didn't know much about, I had met you and thought you were cool in ResponsiBid and kind of just knew not the ins and outs, honestly, of what your software did, until so many of our virtual assistants started using it. And we'll definitely attach the video here in the playback. We put it on YouTube and stuff as well, so you guys can see. Last year, JC decided to teach me how to use it live on Facebook Live in front of everyone, and didn't even teach me how to measure a driveway. It didn't teach me how to use the measure stick. And honestly, that was the hardest part, was figuring out how to use the little stick to measure the driveway, to use ResponsiBid, and to just train somebody live, and then to be able to, go give someone an estimate. So, magical software.
Nice. Thank you.
So yeah, tons of our VAs, I see them being just powerhouses, using the software, using it so much more than I think their owners were using it, because as a virtual assistant and the admin in a business, they have time to dive in and really learn all of the features, learn from all of your great training that your team does, and learn how to really maximize it in a business.
Well, one of the things that we discovered sort of early on is that to give good quotes, and especially to elevate your quotes to be the most effective possible, it requires this kind of mishmash of, we need to know how you do things right now, because we want to try and match whatever we can. We need to expose you to some best practices, maybe make some changes, with you in how you're doing it to take advantage of some opportunity. And then when you get your team on board so that they can actually use the software. Those 3 things can take some time. So what we did a few years back is we said, you know what? You can't buy ResponsiBid without getting a dedicated coach. Like, we're just going to assign a coach to you. If you buy ResponsiBid, unlike other software, you're buying people too, and or I should say a team, but truly the dedicated coach is a key component. But we did that because we knew that that was the only way people were really, truly systematically succeeding with ResponsiBid. So we did it. Then we attempted to do what's called a done for you setup. Done for you setup meaning you pay us some money, we'll take that money and just figure it all out for you and just do best practices. We ran into some trouble, so we amended it a little bit and we said, you need to send us your price sheet because we're pulling prices out of best practices and people were freaking out. Like, my area needs different kinds of pricing, or, haven't you ever heard of Drive It or Hardy Board or aluminum siding? So, okay, we will take more insight from you and we'll have you fill out a form and get it to us. But again, people get locked up. So we adjusted. Then we found out that almost everybody who bought done for you at the very end, they wanted to just go through it again so they understood how we made all the changes. So we just felt like done for you is not an option. We took it off. We only had it for like 6 months because we just found that there was no one who really could truly turn over us to just do the best practice part. Remember, I said we got to download your brain how you're doing it now and then tie that in with the best practices. And then the final part is getting your team on board. Well, how are we supposed to get your team on board done for you? How are we supposed to figure out how you're doing stuff without you? And so we just wrote it off. Done for you is not an option. Done with you is the only way we can do it. And we were talking to Angela. This is actually when you back in the very old days when you're Angela Schroeder, like weeks ago, right? But we were talking and I had a revelation. I'm like, wait a second. If you have a VA that already knows how ResponsiBid works by virtue of being in a network of VAs, and if you have this VA who knows how the company works by virtue of the fact that they're already in a company and they are seeing how the processes work, holy cow, we have all the components right here. How are you currently doing it? How do we apply industry best practices? And how do we get your team on board? I mean, it was like a ton of bricks because it was so frustrating to think that we couldn't do it for you. And then to go, well, with our affiliation with Unique Genius, working in the background and providing special tools and whatnot so that you guys as a team can train and we can have special access to us and stuff. I'm like, we have just built it. It's here. That's so cool.
It is so cool. Because it is that unique aspect that they are in the business. Like, they already have that. You don't have to come in, pull the price thing and pull how do you get the team involved and all of that. Let's take a step back before we go a step forward. And if our listeners, if you're just tuning in and just joining us, let's talk a little bit about first just the industries you serve and the problem that that you solve.
Great point. So if you are in cleaning or lighting, those are the industries that we seem to do best in. I'm just going to go ahead and rule out right now. If you're a handyman or an HVAC or a plumber, we probably won't, or a painter, we probably won't work great for you. Now, do we have everyone from those industries using us? Yes. But right now, ResponsiBid doesn't have the ability to tie in all the part numbers and all the different, like a handyman. How do you put in the 2x4s and the drywall and the screws and the material costs, right? And then if you're a plumber, you've got SKUs, right? Hot water units. It's not just a brand and a model. It's the brand, model, and a size, and there's a SKU for that. And then there's the good, better, best within all of those. And even then, you probably service lots of different brands. So it gets really out of control. And we just don't feel like it's a good thing to work around if you already have a process that works for you. We run into all that. But where we work really well is when labor is the main thing. When your fixed costs around like materials like lighting and stuff is pretty, what's the word? Like predictable? Predictable is the word I'm looking for. So when it's very predictable how much of the cost is going to be lighting, and then labor is also basically a variable cost. If your fixed costs can be turned into variable costs, we're really good. We're really, really good. So pressure washers, window cleaners, gutter cleaners, any kind of exterior cleaning. Maid service we work well for. Carpet cleaning has been rising up our list pretty quickly. So we have the tool for people in the cleaning industry for quoting. And what we say is quote quickly, follow up flawlessly, schedule smartly. Those are sort of the three big branches of what we do.
Say those three things again.
Yeah. So quote quickly refers to the fact that we can bring in specifications and quickly do good, better, best, bundling, discounting, pricing, value options. Like we start giving customers lots of good choices, powerful quotes done really, really quick. Then follow up flawlessly. We are the only software I know of that offers infinite follow-up for contractors. So when your customer is in a proposal state, you can set up emails, text messaging, postcards, whatever you need, neighbor postcards, whatever you need to set up for someone who's open, for someone who's considering. They say, yes, I'm interested, but I haven't scheduled with you yet. There's a whole other, you can infinitely follow up with them. And we have all these different stages of the process, all the way through the point where they've actually bought from you and you're following up for the next service. An infinite follow-up. So follow up flawlessly is a very key component for making sure that you don't lose your customer base that you've already earned. And then the last component, schedule smartly. It's actually a technology we call CrewCal. And what it does is it reads your CRM, because ResponsiBid is a funnel that goes into your CRM. And our funnel will actually read the calendar in your CRM and use that to determine the best drive time for the person you're trying to schedule, whether they're self-scheduling from your website, or whether you're just doing it in the office and maybe you don't offer website scheduling. Either way, it tells you how long the job would take any particular crew and how far the drive distance would be on any particular day. And it actually optimizes the time that you tell your customer you like to schedule. So those three things make the sales process really fast.
Yes. And they are the three things that we realized this was a powerful partnership with a VA and ResponsiBid. So as our virtual assistants started using ResponsiBid, going into companies that like JC's washing company, like lots of our window washing, power washing, lighting companies, as we started having VAs that were using the software, I was like, this makes your VA like supercharged. And if they didn't have ResponsiBid, I'm like, well, you really need ResponsiBid, because it makes someone being able to, it just empowers the person that is in your office. There's lots of other things that it empowers, but we're going to talk today about empowering the person in your office, whether they're a virtual assistant or they are your office person. It makes, like you said, that quoting quickly. It doesn't have to be. So many business owners are out there and they have this whole, what they think is a process for quoting, but it's mostly in their head. So they've tried to train their salesperson and they think, I can't train my office staff because I have to take my salesperson out there in the field. We have to look at the house. We have to do all these things and make this quoting just this crazy long process that isn't really standardized. Whereas with ResponsiBid, it makes it's the whole SOP for you. You just go through, you put in the questions, and you can teach anyone, even me who doesn't know anything about washing.
Where the measuring stick is the hardest part.
Measuring stick is the hardest part. I know nothing, had never quoted a house or know anything about it. It makes it so that you can just make it effortless, like flawless, not easy to make a mistake, and just systematically get somebody a quote that is consistent over time, right? So a lot of times it takes too long to do a quote. Only one person in the business can do a quote. Quotes aren't consistent and you're worried about sending somebody else out doing a quote because now we're losing money because the quote isn't right. So all of those things for a business, it just takes all of that guesswork question out of it, and anybody can get trained to do a quote quick, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, so if you have someone answering your phone who has never done the work, that is one of the hardest parts of hiring somebody. Like, oh boy, I just hired someone who'd been answering phones in a dental office and now they're going to answer the phones in my cleaning company. Oh boy, what are we gonna do here? Well, now expand it to a VA. When I first started hiring people overseas, and I was explaining that we have software for window cleaners, the first question is, okay, what's a window cleaner? I don't understand what you're talking about. That's not something that we worry about in our country, you know? And so, okay, let's go to the very beginning. I thought I was at the beginning, but now we got to go to like the very beginning, right? So if someone lives in an area that couldn't even fathom the service or understand why the heck you even provide the service, giving prices, it goes without saying, is going to be very difficult for them. But now let's expand it. Now they got to not just get prices for it, they got to sell it. How are they going to explain to the person on the phone why they should pick it? Like, that's hard. Then they've never been to your city, your country maybe, let alone your city. And you're expecting them to route in some sort of reasonable way? No way. But all these things are fixed through processes, technologies that can, like, for example, our crew cal technology that is the scheduling, it figures out optimization with 10,000 calculations per second. Like, it literally maps all the jobs and all the openings to all the job that we're trying to schedule. And it starts figuring out distance and time. And all of those calculations are all used to determine what's really optimal. Now, this person sitting in a chair in another country answering your phone, now they have the system and the technology to be able to actually speak authoritatively and confidently to do these tasks. That is a big opportunity. It's so cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And we train our virtual assistants much better than JC trained me before using ResponsiBid. They do have some education on what window washing and power washing and what that all means in the equipment. And so they can be educated in the industry. But this empowers them, like you said, to take the guesswork out of it and to be able to, quote, give good, better, best packages, to be able to upsell those opportunities. And then people are so surprised. They're like, what do you mean that they can do routing and they can do the scheduling? Well, it's taking the guesswork out of it. It's doing it better than someone who is trying to do it themselves. They don't have to know, they don't have to live in the area. It's using science and measurements so that they can do all of that. And that they, the piece that then we missed is the follow-up, that instead of trying some manual thing, and we have all these people in our CRM and what's going on, who haven't we followed up, that they can set up, systematically and make sure that no money is left on the table and every prospect is getting incredible follow-up. So it is supercharging. Like I said, it's just like a super tool for a virtual assistant, and makes it so that they're powerful in your business. They're not just answering the phone and still the work's going for you. I got to see it so many times last spring in live action in JC's business. Like first months of spring, $100,000 a month, and the only admin in the business is a virtual assistant in the Philippines using ResponsiBid. Getting all that out, getting things scheduled. She's the only admin doing it all, getting it all on the books and everything because of this phenomenal tool.
Well, yeah, that's so cool to hear. I love hearing the stories about it. When I first got into automation, where my brain really started to find some footing was that everyone has tasks that they do all the time. Like, we all have them. And the whole idea of automation is you need to take the time to identify what those tasks are. Because if you're doing something all the time, you probably, it's not true every time, but almost always, you have a process you're following your brain that you've nailed down because you've seen it enough times to get through it, and to get through it as custom as you need to be and as standardized as you need to be. So automation is really about just identifying those things that you do all the time. The second part of automation is the items you cannot delegate. Now, this gets really tricky, especially when you talk about technology, because now with AI, you can start to think about, I can't delegate this because I can't write a prompt long enough to do it. And AI kind of has helped us to identify those things. Like AI is as good as the prompt, right? And I that's not even necessarily true, but if you have to explain how to do a performance review on someone, there's the key indicators that you can easily write down in a prompt of like what needs to be done. But then there's like all of these other factors that come into play. How do you quantify how good of a team player someone is? How do you quantify the how big their smile is and their enthusiasm? How do you quantify, like, there's things that like it gets really soft touch. And so how could I ever turn over to someone else to do performance reviews? Because only I can look at the key indicators and the soft factors. Well, that's where I feel like the whole VA comes into play, is that if you're able to automate the tasks you do all the time through systems, what do you do about the things you can't delegate? And my response to that is figure out what it is that about that thing that you can't delegate, and try to identify what could be given in order to, like, in short format. Like we do it for our bookkeepers all the time. Our bookkeepers aren't going to do our taxes for us, but the part to get to the taxes can be done by somebody else, right? And so they keep our books are nice and clean. And when it comes time for taxes, our accountant can just jump in and be done. Like, it's so fast and easy for our accountant because of that. And those are the things that I think that we also need to talk about when it comes to VAs, not just ResponsiBid, anything, is what processes are we afraid to get rid of and that are crippling our ability to get out from underneath our business because you're spending all of your time doing repetitive tasks and or falsely believing that you have to do an entire task yourself because no one else can actually do this. When in fact, it's only one or two little tiny pieces of that final decision. Yes, I'll spend the money, or no, I won't spend the money, or whatever. But the research all up to that point to make the case for, if you do it, here's the pros and cons. If you don't do it, here's the pros and cons. And then you go, great, thank you for doing all that lion's share of the work. I choose this. Boom. You just turned a week-long project into 30 seconds, or, probably not that oversimplified, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, that's where a VA can come in and say, now we've got the human element and I can bring you what you actually need in terms of a report or research or whatever.
That's such a great point, Curt, and why you should all be using the virtual assistant and be going through those things in your life with, if it's a virtual assistant or not. I think, and right now, the beginning of the year is a perfect time as you're setting yourself up for the season as well, to take an inventory of your business in your life, of exactly those things. Like, what are you hanging on to so tightly that you think has to be just you, that could be delegated or automated, and done more efficiently? So how can you automate the process so that it's done more efficiently, more consistently? And then what things that you can delegate. And we talk about that all the time in Unique Genius, that you can make such a greater impact in the world and have more fun doing it if you really identify what your unique genius is, what your strengths are, what lights you up, what gets you close to your goals, and you focus on living your life fully in the area of things that meet all three of those criteria. And with everything else, you figure out a way to delete, delegate, or automate it.
Well, that's what I love about even the name of your business, let alone the name of this podcast or show, or, Unleash Unique Genius. I think that is what people just don't realize, that they are sacrificing by having this whole hero mentality of, I have to keep doing these tasks. I'm the only one who can do these tasks. If you don't take the time to identify those things, you'll never have time. If you don't, I think the saying, I can't believe this, I'm quoting myself. I made up a quote one time. Yeah, here we go. Let me quote Abraham Lincoln once said, no, Curt Kempton once said, no, neither one's very,
I love it.
There it goes. It's, if you don't ever have time to build systems, you're never going to have time. And I feel like the same applies to delegation, automation. If you don't have time to delegate or automate, you'll never have time. Because that's the toilet bowl of your life, is that your plate will consistently get things added to it. And if you're never taking anything off your plate, it's just a downward spiral and you will swish right down the toilet bowl. And it's probably not cool to like talk about people's lives going down the toilet, but you are sacrificing your family time or the time that, maybe you're not married, maybe you're single, maybe you really just love to be married to your job. And I know people like that who are powerhouses. Personally, I find fulfillment in a lot of different areas outside of my business. I will even share a story. How are we doing on time, Angela?
Yeah, good. Share a story.
Okay. I'm going to share a story, very personal one, because, I did wear my job, my business as an identifying characteristic. And I still do, I guess, to an extent, but I wore it as a badge of honor that I worked constantly and never took time off. I did love my work, but and I worked from home, so I saw my family all the time. But back before I ever started any cleaning company, I thought I was going to be a professional mountain bike racer. That was the job I wanted and was working toward.
Huh.
Okay. Yeah. That was my goals. When I okay, when I got engaged, I asked Rachel's father for her hand in marriage. And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you plan to do to support a family?" I said, "Don't worry, Mr. Phelps, right? I'm going to be a professional mountain biker." That's what I presented as a way of taking care of his daughter. So I can't believe he let me. Why don't you come back with a better idea later on? He didn't do that. He just said, "Okay. Hope you're good at riding mountain bikes. Hope you don't get injured." Anyway, I did that. And then I found out relatively shortly, within a year of being married, this is a terrible idea. This is not going to lend itself. We got pregnant almost immediately. I realized this is not going to work. This is a terrible lifestyle for a husband. So I started a business. I worked at some other stuff on the side and blah, blah, blah. Got to where I'm at today. Now I have a 16-year-old son, but about 13 years old. He discovers mountain biking like it's the greatest thing in the world. He's like, "Dad, you should try mountain biking. It's fun." And I'm like, "Really? Where'd you hear it?" "Well, my friend got a mountain bike and we went and we were riding it around and I took my little bike over there and I rode a real mountain bike and it was so fun. And I'm good at it, Dad. I can jump and I can go." And I'm like, "Well, that's really cool." I didn't even tell him anything about I was just like, "That's cool." And because I don't want to be like the glory days guy. So he starts getting into it and he goes, "Dad, I just heard about a race league. I want to join a mountain bike race league." So that's the time I told him, I'm like, "Well, cool. I used to race mountain bikes." And he's like, "I know you did." And I'm like, "Oh, how did you know that?" He's like, "I was going through the photos and I saw a bunch of race pictures. And in the garage, one of the cabinets you have has a bunch of trophies in it. And I saw your trophies, Dad. You're a mountain bike, you're fast." And I'm like, "Not anymore, son." I give him a side profile view of my gut and everything. Because all I do is work. The only thing I ride is a chair at work, right? It's not pretty. So he gets in this riding league, and I figure everything else in his life, it'll just pass right through. Well, it didn't. It stuck. And then his little brother is like, "Dad, I want to try riding too." So I go get my bikes out of storage, basically. They're just up hidden in the garage, and they're so out of date, it's not even funny, but they were nice back in the day. I get on my bike and I start riding again. The reason I'm telling you this story is because had I been living in a place where I was completely connected to work in a way that I just continued to say, "Well, you keep having fun on your mountain bike. You keep having fun on your mountain bike." I am now at a place where part of my identity, a big part of my identity, is that at 3:00 p.m. Pacific time, I'm off work and I go train with my boys who are riding over 100 miles a week, training and crushing bigger animals than I ever was, right? They're amazing. But guess what? We are talking all the time. We share passion so amazingly. I could be doing tasks repetitively in my office. I could be making sure to not delegate stuff, and I could be sitting at my desk and doing all. But you know what I'm actually doing is I am still my son's father. I am not my son's friend. I want to be clear about that. I am his father, not his friend. But I will also say we have a connection on a level that I just didn't know was possible. And I think about both of my boys who their achievements, it's so fun to celebrate their achievements and to see that they know that I'm not just celebrating it from sitting in the stands. I am on my bike with them every day. We're sweating our guts out. We're pushing each other in intervals. We're doing all sorts of stuff training. I'm down 30 pounds. I can't believe it. I feel amazing. And
That's
I feel
awesome.
amazing physically, but truly as a father, I feel like I am finally living up to the potential that I had in my unique genius.
Mm-hmm.
It never could have been achieved as a desk jockey, you know?
Kurt, that's such a powerful story. Literally like tears to my eyes of how you, um, yeah, that connection. And you could never get that back. You could never get this time back with your boys and the connection. And I mean, we feel how it warms your heart and the transformation that it's made in you, and the huge impact that you're making on their lives, that
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened. And that's what we talk about, whether it be that you are a parent and what stage the kids are in your life, or your partner in life, or you don't have a family and it's the people that you're called to lead in your business. As a business owner, you are called to lead in so many different circles, and that impact that you can have in those lives that were assigned to you can be so much greater. And it just, I think it was a thing of the world for so long, the hero mentality, and that we took pride in, like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and I'm making the greatest impact because I work the most hours and I'm putting in the most grind, and that's how I'm the best for my family, giving them the most money. That's how I'm the best for my business. And that's really not the case. It's when you can work in your unique genius, when you can free up your time to do that, that you can have the greatest impact in all of those lives of those people around you.
Yeah. And you talk about lives assigned to you. That's such a key component too. Like, you as a business owner, if you're busy spinning the plates on all the sticks, how are you going to inspire people to reach beyond? And how are you going to take your business to the next level from a vision perspective? Those are all really hard questions, even without spinning plates. But when you're spinning plates, they're kind of impossible questions. Then you expand it out to faith. And I'm not talking about just your own faith. What about in your local community church? Or what about in my daughter is currently serving a mission as a service missionary. She wakes up in the morning and just serves from sun up to sundown. So, as an example, 2 days ago, I don't know if you know this, and I'm sure it's all over the whole country, but every grocery store has food that will expire within the next so and so number of days. And you know where all that food goes? It goes to these. In our case, there's the one that she was at a couple days ago. It's called Father McGivney's. It's a food bank. And these food banks just have cars piled up as far as the eye can see, coming through the less fortunate people that just couldn't afford groceries. And they give it to them. And my daughter just gives to them. And then she goes and helps with like a community like outreach to youth, or to just religion, like a genealogy, family history work. She helps people with that. Like, she does all sorts of crazy different stuff. And she dedicates her time to that. She is empowering people, and she has conversations with people to uplift and do things like that. I mean, how much of our time could we find, not sun up to sundown? I'm not trying to hold anyone to some crazy standard. This is a very specific season of my daughter's life that's really inspiring and cool, and she'll always have it to look back on. But what are we doing to build faith in people? What are we doing to build faith in humanity? What could we be doing instead of repetitive tasks? That's kind of exciting to think about. And then there's like so much even beyond that. is just showing up. Like I went to a community, like, like, open house. Like, what's it called when they're all like kind of like battling out what they think should happen in the county.
Oh yeah, like a town hall.
Yeah, town hall. Thank you, town hall. I went to one of those, and I'm like, wow, people really care about stuff. Like I've lived in like my own little shell, and I don't know, Angela. Look, all I'm saying is that it's easy to get roped into my passion is my business. And I'm just telling you as a guy who has stepped out just in the last year or so. And I thought I had pretty good work-life balance, but it wasn't until I actually said, no, I at these hours will be doing these things, blocking out my time in order to produce something of value in my family. It opened my eyes up to go, whoa, you're way deeper in your turtle shell than you thought you were. You hadn't even gotten your head outside of the turtle shell.
Mm,
And there's so much out there, but we get stuck in our own turtle shell, you know?
yeah, we do. We do. And just because I think to sum up this, and we went really deep and I love it, that just because you can do it, just because you can do it all in your business, doesn't mean that you should. And we've touched on so many different areas, you guys, that you can have an impact in your family, in community, in faith, and a bigger impact in your business, to really impact more lives when you focus on the things that your unique genius, your unique gifts, spending time in those and empowering people to do the rest or using automation. And so coming back full circle to as we started the episode, we kind of talked about how much we love ResponsiBid and how it empowers our VAs to work to them to be more powerful and not just be an admin, but to be a driving force in the business and how awesome it is. And then why you should do it as a business owner, and all these things. And I hope you all have a takeaway of that, of as you start the new year, why you should take a look at all these things and working in your unique genius. And now I want to go back to, as we talked in the beginning of the episode, is if you don't have ResponsiBid and all these things are making it curious, how awesome it is that we've discovered that Curt can now have this done for you solution. Again, that one of the obstacles is business owners weren't spending enough time. They would take on ResponsiBid and, I was like, where do I don't even remember how to put things up. JC made a comment here.
Hey, JC.
But he was guilty of this and ResponsiBid, got ResponsiBid a few times, put it on a shelf and was like, just not spending the time to integrate it into his business because it takes some time. And the great thing about having, getting a virtual assistant, again, the super duo power, is with a virtual assistant, they can help you implement this done for you ResponsiBid into your business.
It really is a match made in heaven. And it's so encouraging to me because, you know, ResponsiBid is an investment of dollars, yes, but really it's an investment of your systems, like you're investing in your systems. And what we have found is that people who try to do it all on their own, building a new system will fall to the wayside. But when you bring on a VA who knows how your system and your business works, now your systems can be created by your people, delegated, and to knowledgeable and accountable and smart and people operating within their own genius. So yeah, it's such a great thing. And that's actually one of the things that I was really excited when we came on today, is that I wanted to talk about the fact that your company has provided something that we just couldn't do. We couldn't figure out how to get done for you, sign up for ResponsiBid, get done for you without that extra element. It's the missing link, is that person who has the time to convert your current systems into the new way, understands the best practices of ResponsiBid, can actually funnel your way in and dovetail it in to actually elevate it. And then getting your team on board, that's sort of the ultimate thing is if you do have a whole team, that can be a big job. If it's you and a VA, the VA just gets you on board and shows you what you need to know and teaches you how to use it, and everything's cool. But when we're at a trade show, one of the things that drives me nuts is that someone will come up to the booth and go, I've been wanting to get this for years. I'm so excited to get it. And they sign up and they go, you'll hear from my office administrator. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So you're not the one who's going to be putting this into work? No, my office administrator will. I'm like, okay, well, I should have asked you that earlier. We need to get them on board first, because if that person is not willing to change the way that they do things, then this is going to be a really uphill battle. And the nice thing about having Unique Genius VA is that they're trained in and know how to and have access to people who can, even in addition to our own team, they have that network of other Unique Genius VAs that can actually support them. And that is what brings this to actually the strength, is that it's being fully utilized in your sales process. And that's when you just start firing on all cylinders.
Yes. And you're right. It's like this perfect synergy, because a lot of times you bring something in and yes, your office manager, something's doing it or you're doing it. And we're all just a little reluctant to change, right? We're like, I got to learn all these new things and put these things in. And then your team is great at resources and the done with you option, there are people there to help, but oftentimes we're like not taking the hand that's helping us, still resisting. And with a virtual assistant, one, your team is phenomenal at supporting our virtual assistants to learn it with any questions. And then they also have a community of their peers. So people that have been using ResponsiBid for years, other virtual assistants in washing businesses that have a lot of experience in it. So they're getting this like, oh, this works awesome for us. This is great. You're going to love it. This is going to make you look like a superhero. And people that are running alongside them. So it's locking arms with you. It's locking arms with their peers. And so that everything can get set up and you aren't just using, what we found, a lot of people were using just like bits and pieces or not maximizing their experience with ResponsiBid until their VA is like, did you know, like, we just got to embrace this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that embracing is what truly is the magic. Like if you can't embrace this new system, the new system might as well not even exist. Like, no, and you can fake it till you make it. I've seen that work too. But yeah, that's the power. So yeah, it's been really a crazy ride seeing all the different kinds of entrepreneurs out there. I mean, when I started this company, I just assumed every entrepreneur was just like me. And it was a really wrong assumption. And then I changed over the years. And then I've seen other people change over the years. And I've seen now with like these millennials are now running businesses. Like I remember as like, young adult, young married guy, we talked about millennials like they're high schoolers or teeny boppers. They're business owners with families now, and they do it different. They just do. Their expectations are. I remember standing up in front of a group and being like, ResponsiBid's important. We got to offer people pricing even without, talking to you over the phone because, like millennials, people want to text, not talk. I remember people thinking like, oh, but that's millennials. They're just at home. They're not my customer. Well, things have changed and things are changing really fast. And it's not just your customer millennials, it's your employees and it's your, it's a crazy world we're living in. So allowing a path for this enthusiasm of how things are done now, it's more important than ever.
Yes, it is. Well, I knew this time would go fast, Curt, and we went into some great conversation. I was like, man, I'm glad I got to have these conversations with you today. So thank you for being first time ever, third guest, first time with the English House.
That's cool.
And just not only sharing a wealth of information and solutions, hopefully spark some interest about, and that's what ResponsiBid is to me. And I hope you guys get that. It's not revolutionizing your business. It's really your process, your people supercharged.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. I love that. One of the things I had to do is help people understand we're not a CRM. We're not replacing your CRM. We're a funnel into your CRM. We're not asking you to change. We're asking you to just optimize the funnel of leads coming into your system. And then it's just like what you said too, is we're not asking you to change necessarily even how you sell. We just want to make sure that you are selling the best way possible along your already bespoke way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great talking with you, systems and processes, and then getting into all of the deep stuff as well. So thanks for being
here. Thank you. Always fun.
Well, this has been another episode of Unleash Your Unique Genius. We'll see you back next Wednesday.
Bye.